One thing we've been working on is our first group of cows calving. We've got 192 cows that are calving right now. We were fortunate, most of them were kind of scheduled to calve through the latter part of May and into June. Overall, we're pretty happy with the season.
Calving in Northern Ontario is probably not significantly different from the south. We have the purebred and smaller producers that will calve in February and March. The larger commercial herds are calving more towards April and May, and some have moved completely to grass calving so that you can run the cows out in the field and let them calve out there. It really reduces the amount of disease in those calves.
So the cattle, they are outside year-round. So we're calving right now up until the end of July. Those calves will stay with the cow until March.
We have a local large animal vet in Kapuskasing, so if you call him up, he calls you back a couple hours later and says he'll be there tonight around 6 o'clock. I have the same access to meds as I do down south. I order them today by 11 and they're usually here by tomorrow. I think that the cattle were definitely healthier this past winter than I'd normally see, like in lighter calves for sure.
There are veterinary clinics in all the major population centres throughout Northern Ontario. There are a couple of unique health challenges that we face in Northern Ontario. The predominant one that we see in producers that are moving up from the south is blackleg. It's easily prevented with a vaccination, so once producers find out about it, they protect for it and there aren't any issues.
Really, we don't have any predominant illnesses in our cattle. We have never had a problem here in Northern Ontario. The air is fresh and clear, and like I say to you, fresh water and good hay should carry a cow and a calf, no problem at all.
We work with Temiskaming Vet Clinic, and we're able to access any of our medications, our vaccinations for our calves. We're also calving out on green pasture, so our levels of vitamin E we feel are higher, so we don't run into any white muscle issues on calving.
There is an advantage to maintaining cattle in Northern Ontario. We don't get that wet precipitation, that freezing rain throughout the fall and spring period that you'll see in Southern Ontario. Cold stress isn't really that much of a concern up here.
In terms of livestock, yes, it gets cold here, but it typically gets cold and stays cold, so you don't necessarily have the cycles of, wet, cold. We do typically have long days here though, so even if it's not as warm, we do have a lot more sunlight, which helps offset some of the lack of heat.
22 or 24 is pretty much summertime here, so it's good for ruminating cows. It's good for grass growth as well. So I mean, it's good for just about everything.